Greetings, family. I have a good one for you today. Um, this topic was spurred by the backlash that our queen sister Monique, the comedian, received when she made a comment about bonnets. And to be honest with you, I haven't seen the video. I have respect for this sister. I see her on IG with her workout videos, and when I heard she made a comment about bonnets, I just assumed it was about somebody doing something tacky or that she felt was inappropriate. And I have enough respect for her to know that she was coming from the heart and that everybody has their right to an opinion, right? So I didn't feel any need to watch it. It didn't apply to me, right? I know where my bonnets belong, right? Um, and it just made me think more about how we view bonnets as women, how we view them in our culture, how our men see us in these bonnets, and are we thinking that bonnets and head wraps are the same thing? Because I think there are people that think that. I think they really do not see a difference, which is unfortunate, right? Because we need to know the importance. And I'm going to take you through the history of us adorning our heads and you deciding, are you team bonnet? Are you team head wrap? Or maybe you're in the middle, right? Because there is a role and a purpose for each. And if you don't know the role and purpose, then I hope to educate you on that. And maybe you will consider, right, how these things can be utilized in your daily routines, or at least know enough about them to see how this information applies to you or it doesn't apply to you. Okay, so we're going to get started. Um, in my experience, I have always thought that women did not go outside with rollers in their hair. You didn't go out looking unkept. You didn't go out looking like you just rolled out of bed, right? This is the way I was raised, right? We just didn't do that. And as far as our parents and our grandparents, we know they were dressed, right? They even had phrases like dressed to the nines, dressed to the T, distinguished, elegant, graceful, because our people, because they were deprived of so much, took pride in looking their best with no matter how little they had. Now we've taken that to another level, right? Because now it's about keeping up with the Joneses and who got the flyest bag, right? We've taken that to being superficial, right? History has led us in that direction. We've allowed history to pull us in that direction. The other piece was I wanted to give some examples. I talked about growing up and that being unacceptable, but I also remember being in college, right? And there were girls who, just kind of came to class with their hair all over their head. They had on pajamas, in my mind, they didn't wash their behinds. They just rolled out of bed and came to class. And quite honestly, it wasn't us doing that. It was other people doing that and seemed to be able to get away with it. We did wear sweats, which was different for us to be able to come in sweats every day and not jeans and a cute top. And then people would put on a bunch of weight in college and wondered why. The freshman 15, it was because you stayed in your sweats all the time. You weren't really paying attention to how you looked, but it was different because we were around a bunch of women, right? No one was really trying to impress the other women. You were just there to get your education. So that was my other contact with, women and their appearance. We also had, beauty parlors, right? You remember, I remember going, beauty parlors were something you did religiously. You went to get your hair trimmed. You went for the latest hairstyle. You went for finger waves. You went for to get your perm. touched up, whatever it is you were doing, you went to do this stuff at a beauty parlor, and it was like the men's barber shop. You even got your nails done in a beauty parlor, right? While you were waiting, because they keep you waiting so long. So you weren't really focused on covering your hair because you were too busy trying to show your hair. So that was the difference. I also remember, us having like a homemade beauty shop in the house, right? I do my mom's hair, I do my aunt's hair, and then they might do something to mine, right? I was the one who would style, and I could, once they got the cut, I could maintain any hairstyle for them. So I remember wrapping their hair, otherwise known as like Harlem doobies. I used to do my friends and my mom's hair. And then when I was natural, I would do other people's locks. I would start their locks for them. I had locks for like 20 years. Many people don't know that about me. And me having locks wasn't just about, oh, I have locks now. It became a spiritual journey. It was how I became a vegetarian, right? It was how I became a vegan. I lived that lifestyle for like 20 years, So people who act like it's new to eat healthy and it's new to be a vegan, I'm past that because I've done it, right? I don't feel the need to deprive myself of things that I want to eat, right? I eat what I want to eat, and I do it within reason. So all of that was a journey just from my hair, right? And the thing about when I had locks was there were times my hair be very beautiful and styled, but most of the time my hair was tied up. I kept my hair in wraps because I saw my locks as an extension of me. I saw my locks as branches, as antennas, to the point like when I would go out places to go dancing, because I used to dance. I mean, I was into house music, I was into reggae. So when I would go to the clubs, my hair was always wrapped. And people were like, take your wrap. No, I'm not taking my wrap off. Mostly because I didn't want anybody touching my hair, which meant I didn't want their energy. And I definitely didn't want to go home smelling like an ashtray. Because, when you're in that club environment, there's people smoking and different things going on, the smells. And I just did not want that pollution. I didn't want that toxic stuff in my hair. So my hair was wrapped. I kept my hair wrapped. I saw my hair as something precious that was to be protected. That's why I covered it. So, when you wear head wraps, when you wear bandanas, you wear head coverings, there's more to it than people realize. It's not just, oh, I'm being lazy. It has to do with protection. And we're going to talk more about that. The other piece that I wanted to cover was I have always had a sensitive crown. Even when I was a baby, and most of you probably did as well, right? You remember your parents say, oh, don't touch the baby's head because the baby has a soft spot. That was really about the crown chakra. And you don't have to be into any type of religion to understand that these are elements, entities that we deal with in our lives, right? They talk about the 7 chakras, and the crown chakra is right at the tip of your head. And then the third eye is supposed to be here, the forehead, right? So the crown chakras kind of run up your center, your heart chakra, right? If you ever touch that spot, the middle of your chest bone, and just rub it, it's very tender there. I don't think people pay attention to that. That is your heart chakra. And I'm told if it's very tender or very sensitive, it means there's blockage, right? So you have your heart chakra, your throat chakra, the third eye, right? And then you have the crown. So if we are worried about covering our heads, how does that relate to the crown chakra? This all started for me looking into head wraps, right? And this is how we get into more of the consciousness and the spiritual piece of head wraps that people don't understand. For the crown chakra, it's also known as 1,000 petals. That part of your head there is known as 1,000 petals. Petals, like a flower, right? Isn't that beautiful? I thought that was beautiful. So it's also called Sahasrara. Sahasrara is the 1,000 petals. It's known as Shunya, Nurumlamba Pyu, Nurumlamba Puri, and the crown chakra. It is the energy center, I have notes, y'all, within our bodies that is responsible for thought, awareness, wisdom, and our connection to the divine. Located at the very top of the head, regulates the energy of consciousness. Boom. Wow. We could take that so many ways. We could go so many places with that. How conscious are people? What level of consciousness can people obtain based on how they're protecting that crown chakra? Doesn't it deserve to be protected? And how do we protect it? Head wraps, coverings, veils. And let's not forget, the Bible, for people who are into Christianity, talks about, right? There's a quote. Let me see. There is a quote that talks about that crown chakra, that talks about women covering their hair. And it says, every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her head uncovered dishonors her head. And I believe every cultural group has something about women covering their heads for different reasons, right? So I think that's really interesting, and that can be taken further for people who would love to study that. But when I talk to different women about why they covered their heads, they all had different reasons why, right? Some people talked about protection, and it was a symbol of authority in the spirit to have your head covered, that they felt safe and secure when covered. Some people use blankets. If you ever notice in a church, Christian church, Baptist churches, when people go down on their knees to pray, a person will come and put a blanket over them or a veil over them, right? We also talk about the form of expression in Africa. It was related to royalty and modesty and a way to express yourself as a woman, as well as humbleness, right? Some people even talk about, it also expresses submission and protection from the world, right? So think about it. If you're someone who is walking down the street, because a sister gave me this example, right? She's walking down the street and her head is covered. She doesn't have the energy of men approaching her like that. They're approaching her in a more respectful way, right? Because they're not able to see her vanity. They are just seeing this, right? And it forces people to focus on the face, the eyes, which are supposed to be what? The gateways to the soul, right? And not looking at your breast. You ever have a conversation with somebody and they can't take their eyes off your breast? And you're like, hello, I'm up here, right? So you're covered up, right? So it's just interesting because most time people cover, some people cover and the thing is draped here. But if you're covered and all they can focus on is this, then I think that it's almost like, well, why is she covered? Is this a religious thing? Is this someone that is modest? Is this someone that might be offended if I'm inappropriate? People think like that, right? And I'm going to let you know what the brothers had to say as well. Now, mind you, I'm talking about head wraps. I'm not talking about bonnets, okay? There's a difference. All right, so we went there. So now I want to take you to understanding, as we get into this discussion, the role of these different things that we adorn our heads with. If you saw the prior video that I put up, I show you the different types of ways that we adorn our heads, right? We use shower caps. We get in the shower. You may not want your hair to get wet based on the style. Or if you're going out and it's a cold day, you don't want to go outside with a wet head, so you have a shower cap. If you have a bonnet, right? The bonnet is usually made of a fabric, and it may be a decorative fabric on one side, but the inside of the bonnet should be a fabric that has some slip to it, that will keep the hair moisturized, right? So that it's not drying or sucking the moisture out of the hair, and will be easy to clean, right? So you can wash it. Also, I can tell you that I use my shower caps and my bonnets to do like heat treatments for my hair, hot oil treatments, deep conditioning. I use my shower caps and my bonnets for that. The other piece we have also nighttime protection, right? Some people will use silk pillowcases or, polyester pillowcases, or they will have a bonnet on their head to protect their hair because once again, we're talking about the moisture, right? Drying your hair out. So bonnets for showering and for nighttime use sound more like something to use as a tool, right? To nurture, preserve, and pamper your hair. At no point did you hear me mention fashion, right? That we're using bonnets as fashion. That's not their purpose. It may be that person for some people because, some people just don't care. And you have every right to do that. But recognize that when you do that, people are looking at you a certain way. And if you don't care, then you don't care if they're looking at you a certain way, and that's fine. But we wouldn't be doing this video if it wasn't an issue, right? Because people do care. And if we are presenting ourselves in our best form and our best light, do we really go outside looking unkept? Just something to think about, right? I know my son, I can give you a perfect example. They had their graduation rehearsal, and he said a young lady came to the graduation rehearsal late, and she jumps out of the car and has a pink bonnet on her head. And he just was like, in his mind, as a black man, he's like, that's tacky. She's representing us. Why would she do that? He felt a sense of embarrassment for her, right? And I said, well, were you talking about her? He said, no, like these were thoughts I was having to myself, but people around me, were whispering and carrying on. It's like, not only did she show up in a pink bonnet, but she was late, so she had to be noticed because there she was. And I just thought it was interesting. I said, well, how do you feel about women wearing head wraps, bonnet? He said, well, a bonnet is different. Like, that's tacky. That's showing no effort. You don't care about how you present yourself, right? And then he talked about head wraps, and he's like, but is it religious? Is it cultural? Like, he saw head wraps as having a level of, that they carried a level of respect, right? And consideration that he did not have for bonnets, right? And this is coming from a young person. So I thought it was interesting to get his perspective on that. I wanted to talk about the different names, right, that are used for head wraps. I thought that would be interesting. So we have, actually, I'm sorry, the different types of things that we use on our heads is what I want to talk about. So initially, during the 18th, 17th century, the pieces of fabric that we use on our heads were called rags, right? Or kerchiefs. We say handkerchiefs, but I think those handkerchiefs was for men's pockets. The kerchiefs were the pieces that women used on their head. And they had a Creole term called tignon, Tignon, that was used on the head as well. Now, we know there's different types of things that people use on their head in present day, right? We have wig caps, which people put on to protect their hair under wigs. We have stocking caps that we know the brothers use for like finger waves and to keep their hair in place. We have dude rags. Brothers use that to maintain their hair as well. Head wraps. We have, I'm trying to think what else. So that's it as far as what the different types of things we use, but the different terms that for those head wraps are the gelée. We've heard of that. We see the sisters in Africa with some of the beautiful fabrics that are wrapped very eloquently and very grand. They have height to them. They have the fabric sticking out. It's a very different style, but it's usually based on, a celebration or whatever the case is. So we have the gelée, we have the tokwi, the masoro, and which I think may be a European term, or from North Africa, the turban, right? That's another type of head wrap. So my advice, of course, in using these different wraps on your head is that you're using a fabric with slip, that you wear a wig cap, or if it's cotton, you want to be careful it's not drying out your hair. I only use like silk and polyester scarves when I tie my hair. Some people use old t-shirts, some people use leggings, some people use large scarves, bandanas, stockings, and more recently I've seen people using the neck gaiters, the ones that you can pull up and stretch and kind of wear as a mask as well. People are using those up over their hair to keep their hair in place. Also, the way you tie your hair can be offensive, right? It can be offensive, or it can represent status. So some of the offensive nature of it comes from in the past when they had the minstrel shows, and they would show our people tying a bandana and then pulling it like a bow. So you tie it in the front and then you pull it frontwards. Let me see if I have an example of that. So you tying it, you taking a bandana like this, and then you tying it here, and you're doing this right at the front of your forehead. You're doing that, and you're just leaving it like this, right? And that was kind of shown by Aunt Jemima. If you could think of Aunt Jemima on the pancake box as well as the syrup, they have her with that sort of style in the front. And in the minstrel shows, they had Black women or people imitating African people with that type of hairstyle. There's a sister that talks about more of the history of that in Not Your Mama's History. She is a Black historian that does Civil War enactments and stuff, and she offers some deep information on that. I actually have her in the description. Y'all can check her out. And we're going to stop here, and then we're going to go to a second part of the video where we are talking about people's testimonies and the historical significance of it. Blessings.